2023 was a pretty solid year for cinema. Now let me stop and look back at what movies I thought were the best of the best this year. Now, quick disclaimer, if your favorite movie of 2023 is not on this list, there's a good chance I just haven't seen it yet. Like, for example, Poor Things is a film that is heavily anticipated for me, but I just haven't seen that yet. So this list is easily subject to change. But without further ado, The Holdovers is perhaps the most heartwarming film of the year. The glue of this film is the dynamic between Paul Giamatti and newcomer Dominic Sessa. Paul Giamatti possibly gives the performance of his career in this film. His performance is both hilarious and at times heartbreaking. I just love how humanistic these characters feel. Dominic Sessa's character Angus at first is pretty unlikable, though I love the journey that this film takes his character on. When Paul Giamatti's character Paul warms up to Angus, so does the audience. Even though this is a pretty heartwarming film, it isn't afraid to enter some dark territory. Divine Joy Randolph's character is a grieving mother who has just lost her son due to the Vietnam War. She possibly gives one of the best performances of the year. If she isn't nominated for Best Supporting Actress at the Oscars, I will just fully lose faith in the validity of the Academy Awards. I also love the vintage 70s film-like aesthetic of this film. I was actually very surprised to learn that this film was in fact shot digitally. I know director Alexander Payne has gone out on a limb saying that this film is not a Christmas movie, but I believe this movie is going to go down in cinematic history as a modern Christmas classic. 2023 was a pretty rough year for comic book movies, and blockbuster films in general, though this year offered two bangers that will go down in history as some of the finest films this genre has to offer. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 provided a heartfelt and heartbreaking conclusion to the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy. In recent years, I've really found a greater appreciation for self-contained comic book films. James Gunn managed to craft an MCU movie with actual personality behind it. He was able to craft a movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but without conforming to the now formulaic Marvel Cinematic Universe formula. Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige should really take notes from this film, because this is an unforgettable entry in the MCU in a time where almost all the entries in the MCU are extremely forgettable. This film also provided the most menacing villain since Thanos in The High Evolutionary. I also love how mature and at times disturbing this film was. I've said this for years now, but I think it's about time for the MCU to grow up along with its fans. This movie just reminded me why I was once a fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse didn't only push the boundaries of animation, but proved to me that the art of animation knows no boundaries. This film was the only film of 2023 that made me feel like a 10-year-old kid again. Though being able to see Spider-Man 2099, a childhood favorite of mine, on the big screen was truly a treat, and he was also just such a menacing presence. Though beyond the gorgeous visuals, this film is perhaps one of the greatest Spider-Man stories ever told. Even though Miles is the protagonist of this film, I feel like that Gwen was the real center and heart of this movie, since I feel like her character goes through the most change here. At the core of every great Spider-Man story is the idea that everyone who puts on the mask, everyone who takes over the Spider-Man mantle, has to endure some type of sacrifice. And I feel like this film kind of deconstructs that in a very intriguing way. And this film manages to deconstruct that narrative in a way that doesn't completely betray what makes the Spider-Man character so great. Since this film is part one in a greater story, my final thoughts on this film aren't exactly fully fleshed out, though I have more than enough faith in the filmmakers to deliver an emotionally satisfying conclusion in Beyond the Spider-Verse. I can't be more excited for that film. Overall, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse was just such a love letter to all lifelong fans of this character. This was easily the biggest surprise of the year, and out of all the Godzilla movies I've seen, this one is probably my favorite. Its only real competition is that original. Now, I'm not a diehard Godzilla fan. I haven't seen all of them since there's like 30 of them. Though what really made this film work for me is that I really truly cared about these human characters. In almost every single Godzilla movie I've seen, I didn't care about the human characters. In fact, I was waiting for Godzilla to literally stomp on them. Though in this film, I was just feeling just this strong sense of dread throughout because of the inevitable appearance of Godzilla. Mind you, I paid to watch Godzilla destroy things, but what I ended up getting was a rich story about tragedy. Also, the visual effects in this movie look incredible. I was flabbergasted to find out it was only like $15 million, which is about a tenth of what your typical big-budget Hollywood blockbuster is. Again, this movie had about a tenth of what Ant-Man Quantumania had. This movie just absolutely floored me. This is probably going to go down as the definitive Godzilla story for me. Before I give you my number one spot, let me list off some honorable mentions, such as Killers of the Flower Moon, one of the most thought-provoking and tragic movies of the year. Also, Lily Gladstone kind of stole the show here, honestly outshining her legendary co-stars. Also, David Fincher's The Killer was one of the most tense and action-packed thrillers of the year. I just wish it was released in theaters. Despite of the fact that Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning didn't reach to the levels of greatness that its predecessor Mission Impossible Fallout did, this is still one of the best action movies I have seen in the last decade. Dream Scenario was one of the most funny and surprisingly tragic movies of the year. Nicolas Cage gives, honestly, an unironically excellent performance here. Now, this last one doesn't really count since it's a re-release, but I had a blast with Stop Making Sense. This is probably my favorite theatrical experience of the year. It's funny how both films in my top two deal with the negative effects of the atomic bomb. Despite of the fact that I know absolutely nothing about nuclear physics or geopolitics, I was still able to get fully invested in a story about a man who intended to create something that would better mankind, but he ended up giving mankind the power to destroy itself. This is one of the most impactful character studies ever put to screen, and this film is also a massive achievement for the use of practical effects in the age of CGI. I guess on the other side of the coin, the black and white scenes are shot on this beautiful black and white 70mm IMAX film, and seeing these scenes on the big screen projected in 70mm IMAX film was just one of the greatest cinematic experiences I have ever seen. I know I've said that in this video quite a bit, though. And also, Robert Downey Jr. just did an incredible job as Robert Strauss, completely disappearing into the role, which is something I actually thought was impossible in a post-Iron Man world. If he doesn't secure the Best Supporting Actor nomination, I give up on the Academy Awards. I know I've said that twice in this video, but the Academy Awards of Motion Pictures, you're on thin ice, guys. And also, I'm really crossing my fingers that Christopher Nolan finally gets a Best Director win. It gives me so much hope for the future of cinema that this film grossed almost $1 billion at the box office. This is mostly due to the Barbenheimer phenomenon, which also, I am so happy that that was a thing, you know. I'm so happy that the event of last summer, that the pop culture event of last summer celebrated one of the greatest directors of our time. Not only did Barbenheimer have a massive impact on the future of cinema and the art form in general, but the future of auteur-driven films. I should really make a video talking about the long-term positive effects of Barbenheimer. This film is my favorite Christopher Nolan movie since The Dark Knight, and it is, of course, my favorite film of 2023. So, I decided to get a TikTok account. I know probably a lot of you are thinking, ew, cringe, and you're not wrong for thinking that. But I do feel that that platform is really good for short-form content. So, if you are interested, there is a link in the description below. 2023 hasn't really been my year for consistent uploads, so hopefully 2024 will bring more consistent and high-quality uploads from this channel. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed my latest video discussing my top 5 favorite films of 2023, and if you did, consider giving this video a like, and if you want more content like this, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell notification so you can be notified every time I upload a new video. And shout out to Franklin the Turtle and King Henry VIII. Thanks for watching.